Magic Mouse from Apple. It is their latest mouse, and I believe now it does ship standard on most of their desktop systems, and you can purchase it as an option for their notebooks. Let's take a look at the design. You've got the top here, got the sides, and the back. On the back, pretty simple. You've got a green indicator here that'll glow when the mouse is active. You got your opening for your mouse laser tracking engine. On-off switch. Switch to open the battery compartment. It does take 2 AA batteries. And then you've got these guide rails here that the mouse rides on. And I'll talk about those in a second because that's one of my minor issues with the mouse. Very minor, but still something you may notice. Flipping it over, back to the front of the mouse, or top of the mouse, you'll notice it lacks any visible buttons or scroll wheel. That's because Apple's incorporated their multi-touch technology into the top face of the mouse. The way it works is single click, and then in the options, if you enable what they call secondary click, a la right click menu functionality, you can set it up to recognize the right side here, which will open up your right click menus. In order to scroll, you're going to hold the mouse, use a single finger, scroll vertically, scroll horizontally. If you use 2 fingers on the surface, let's say you're in Safari, that'll move back a page and forward a page. It's pretty cool once you get used to it. Overall, I really like the mouse. The only, again, getting back to the minor issues with it, first thing is on the back here, these guide rails. Notice one thing here, and I'm not going to put any downward pressure on the mouse itself, but hopefully you can hear this, and this is on a cloth-based mouse pad here. It's sort of loud, and that's a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but it is a lot noisier than pretty much any other mouse I've used. And that's because these guide rails here, instead of just being flat, they sort of end at a point almost. And I think if they were a little bit flatter, or maybe if they would have done, which pretty much, let's look at this Anywhere MX from Logitech. It rides on these 4 areas here, which are really wide. And you'll notice, we'll do a side-by-side comparison here. There's the Apple mouse. Again, I'm not putting any downward pressure. The Logitech, it's about 50% quieter. And again, it's a minor point, but for me, if you're in a noisy environment, you're not going to notice it if you have music going or you're in an office. But a lot of times I'm working alone, I'm working on a project, and if it's quiet, I notice it. And to me, a mouse should just be something that's there and useful, and you just use it. You know, little things like the movement noise you shouldn't notice. But again, that just might be me. Your experience may vary. The only other issue is more of an ergonomic issue for me because I have larger hands, and the mouse is sort of squat, which is cool because it looks very sleek and very streamlined. The only issue is you're holding it like this, which is different than what I'm used to. And again, it's going to be a little uncomfortable maybe for you for the first couple hours until you get used to it. But the other thing is, with incorporating the multi-touch, you really have to use your thumb and your third finger here to really grip the sides of the mouse when you're doing these, because if you don't, the mouse will, if you're swiping, it'll tend to rotate on you and things like that. Whereas, let's look at this Logitech, similar sized, but the Logitech being higher, and I think that's the major issue with this. If they would have just made it slightly taller, I don't think you'd run into those kind of problems as far as ergonomics go. But on the Logitech, because it's taller, my hand is more natural when it lays on the mouse. Whereas on the Apple, I'm hovering above it, and which is good because you need that in order to do the multi-touch stuff. But it just gets a little, it feels like your hand's cramping up. Like I said, the first couple of hours you use it. But again, I've gotten used to it, but I just want to make sure people are aware of that. And again, because a mouse is something you use every day, these little points I'm bringing up are just things you notice because, like I said, I'm used to using a mouse and not having to think about it. But again, another example, even bigger mouse, well, I guess they're similar size, the Logitech MX Anywhere. This one, although it's large, the reason it's large is because your hand just naturally fits around it. And I think in version 2 of this mouse, if Apple would maybe raise the height somewhat and maybe add some ergonomic areas on the sides here for where your fingers rest, I think that would really improve the functionality of the mouse. But other than that, those minor issues, I really like the mouse. As far as the options on the Mac side, the control panel options, you can set the tracking speed, the scrolling speed, all the standard stuff. You can set up the functionality of the secondary click, a la right click area here, so you can just tap there to bring up your right click menus. You can set your scrolling either with momentum or without momentum when you scroll. You can also, on the Mac side, I believe if you hold down the control key while you're using the gesture here, you can use it to scroll or zoom into various areas of the screen. And then you can also enable or disable the swiping motions. I'll wrap up by saying one thing, and I know potential users who also run Windows on their Macs with Boot Camp or some type of virtualization software. The mouse does function under Windows. I had no issues. Well, in the beginning when I first got it, you had to do a couple tricks to get it to function correctly under Windows because Apple didn't release Windows drivers for it. But now, as of Boot Camp 3.1, they fully support it under Windows. The only thing you're going to miss on the Windows side is this swipe functionality, the 2-finger swipes. Everything else works, the scrolling with 1 finger, the horizontal scrolling, the right click on the side here, that all works under Windows. Excuse me. So, like I said, in both environments, it will work. But like I said, in Windows, you're just going to lose out on that swipe functionality. Hopefully, in the future here, Apple will release another updated driver, which will add that back in for the Windows people. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, I think this mouse would almost be perfect if the height was a little bit taller and a little bit maybe ergonomic. But again, it sticks with Apple's philosophy of simple, clean, and stylish, which it definitely is. And I can't complain about that. I've gotten used to its minor faults, and on the Mac side, I have no issues with it. So there you go. That's Apple's Magic Mouse.